Hi Shruti, welcome to our podcast. Can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, of course. So my name is Shruti Chand, and I am a graduate from ESSEC Business School, and I graduated this year. I started my journey in Europe and especially in France of studying and working there in 2019. Ever since, I've also co-founded my own company and then founded another company in the education space. So I
Mm-hmm.
help students, especially in their early careers, to move abroad to find out what their niche is, where they can go, and how they can apply to other schools. And other than that, I am a big enthusiast about tech startups. So that's where
Mm-hmm.
I've been working in the past as well, and also building
Mm-hmm.
my own company in the same direction for the future.
Okay, that was a pretty solid intro. So we'll start with the part one. Let's go back to the point wherein you decided that you want to pursue MIM as your career. So when and how did you come to this decision?
So it's a big story, but for the sake of this podcast, to cut it short, it was really random. So you'll hear a lot of people say this that you did not know for sure, and I'm
Mm-hmm.
pretty sure that nobody is born with the thought that that's what I'm gonna be doing. So just like most average student, I was like I want to do something big, but I did not know how, I did not know where, and I ended up in a finance course during my
Mm-hmm.
undergrad. So I come from a CA family background, so it was very obvious for me to study finance. But
Right.
thinking about marketing, thinking about business was something very new to my family, to my mentors, because everybody was from a different set of beliefs and set of career space.
Mm-hmm.
So I was confused. I was working in Mumbai in the finance sector again. I was in the financial market specific area.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that's when I knew one thing for sure. I might have been good at finance, but that is definitely not something I want to do for the entire next few years, at least, of my life. I really
Mm-hmm.
wanted to use this young energy that I had to figure out what I wanted to do. And then I was like, okay, let me start out with probably interning at different places. I knew that I like hospitality. I was like, let
Mm-hmm.
me go and try to see if I can work in hospitality or event space or marketing. So it was really all over the place. And
Right.
then once I tried a couple of stints at different places for 1 month internship, 2 months internships, I realized that I really need a solid background to be able
Mm-hmm.
to take a better choice because I could see this one thing that was common in my decisions. That was that I wanted to be an entrepreneur in the future. But where, what are my
Right.
skills, what I am good at was the question that I still had to answer. So that's when I came
Mm-hmm.
across Masters in Management. I saw that it's totally suited to my needs. It helps you find
Mm-hmm.
out what you want to do. It is pretty long enough for me to still explore, study different things,
Right.
work in different avenues, do a lot of things in the next 3 years.
Right.
That would also pay me to some extent because most of the masters in management programs are also not that, first of all, expensive. Second of all, they pay you through internships. So I thought that's an awesome blend of what I'm looking for, plus very pocket friendly. So I thought, oh,
Right.
overall, I'm gonna do this, and that's how I ended up researching for MIM and deciding that I want to do MIM.
Right. That's a solid answer again. So, while researching for MIM, I'm pretty sure you came across various MBA schools also, the schools that offer MBA courses, or like there are multiple types of MBA as well. So, was there a confusion that you had in mind? Like, do you want to get some work experience and then pursue an MBA? Like, especially if it's out of India, people say that you need work ex of like 3 to 5 years and then you need to pursue. But MIM, you don't need work experience as such. So, like, how did you compare MBA and MIM? Because I'm pretty sure a lot of students, be it in the engineering sector, non-engineering sector, they are like, they weigh out both of these options, like they compare both of these options. So, yeah.
Definitely. First thought that I had was this, what you're talking about, and not even when I was working actually after graduation. This was a thought that I had even during my undergrad because this was a very common discussion even in my BCom financial markets class where I was graduating in Mitibai. That let's do MBA because everybody wants to go to Harvard and the best MBA schools, and you
Yeah.
cannot do that in the next 5 years. So you will have to wait and then
Mm-hmm.
dream of this school and then really work hard for it. But then it's still after 5 years. So what
Mm-hmm.
used to really bother me about that is that it is very long from now. So I sort of chucked
Mm-hmm.
the idea of doing MBA altogether because only like if I were to do an MBA, I would have wanted it to be from the best school in the
Best.
world.
Yeah.
So So when I did come to a point, like I narrated in the last question that you asked me, when I did conclude that I want to do MIM, I also went back to the same thought that why not MBA, Shruti? Why don't you work for a couple of more years and go to the best MBA schools? So I am an Excel freak, and I'm going to share you something really funny that I did. I actually
Right.
started making a list of my ages in columns, and then
Mm-hmm.
how much I would make in all the columns. And then I started comparing the benefits that I would have from an MIM versus an MBA in the long term.
Right.
So,
Mm-hmm.
to my surprise, you will be very, very fascinated by this, especially every young person would be, that in all my calculations, whatever numbers I would put at the age of 27, I was ending up at the
Mm-hmm.
same experience level, at the same salary. It doesn't matter if I did MIM in the beginning and then worked, or else I
Yeah.
did work experience first and then MBA. Because in both the scenario, I was ending up at the
Mm-hmm.
same place at 27 or 28. So
Right.
if you want some numbers, I actually was jotting down a couple of things some days ago. So how it
Mm-hmm.
goes is like, once you put on the salaries that you're going to be getting, at an average, an
Mm-hmm.
MBA salary is going to be about 80 lakhs in a good case scenario in
Mm-hmm.
INR, wherever you're doing it. And for
Right.
an
Right.
MIM, it's going to be 60 lakhs at an average in INR again. So if you
Mm-hmm.
see that an average person graduates from MIM degrees at the age of 25 or 24,
Right.
and from
Mm-hmm.
an MBA at the age of 29 or something like that. So if you
Yeah.
see that the gap that you have is
Mm-hmm.
not that much, and all the efforts that you have put into MIM, if you do it in the beginning of your career, eventually with all the hikes in your salary and with all the position hikes you would get in terms of promotion, you will be
Mm-hmm.
there where the MBA would have taken you irrespective. So it's more about the journey. And this was I'm not trying to be spiritual at all, but it's
Mm-hmm.
very true that if you think about it, it's really about what you gain on the way to reach to that career goal that you want. Because life बहुत lambi hai. Career is also like about 40 to 50 years of the
Yep.
rest of
Yeah.
your life.
Yeah.
So it's about enjoying the journey. And that's when I was like, okay, fine, money wise, it does not matter. Do I
Mm-hmm.
want to really explore myself and have the right direction now at
Mm-hmm.
21? And the answer was yes. So I decided to do MIM. And I would highly encourage whoever you come across or anybody else who's listening to actually do this exercise. Try to compare what you will make, how happy you will
Right.
be, and other
Right.
respects on an Excel sheet with MBA versus MIM, and you'll get your answer for sure.
Right, right. That was quite an insightful answer. Basically, not just for MBA or MIM, but for anyone who is trying to pursue masters even in the STEM courses. So basically, the thing that you said about making an Excel sheet and then comparing, two different courses, I think we can do the same thing while comparing universities as well, right? So I'm pretty sure, when you were making a list of, the universities that you want to apply to, you must have made an Excel sheet in which you have jotted down everything, the courses that they offer, the duration and the tuition fees and all of that. So, this is a pretty analytical approach to everything and a realistic approach that I would say, because here people what do they do is most of them don't have a solid answer to why this university or why this particular course. So basically, how do I view it as university is not a destination, it's a vehicle to your destination. So
Exactly.
it's not about getting into the best university, in my opinion. It's about finding the right university that fits your career choice. So I would
Definitely.
now like to ask you about the application process that you went through. What was the entire process like? How did you select multiple universities? How did you compare? And how did you finally land into ESSEC? So that entire process.
Definitely. First of all, kudos to what you just said. 100% agree that even at my company, whenever we have clients, we keep repeating this, that it's just a means to your career. Like your degree is just a stepping stone to the life that you want. It's not your
Right.
life. It's not the end goal. So definitely, that's exactly what I had in mind. Exactly like you said it, that I wanted to see what fits me in terms of
Yeah.
what I want and which school do I fit in also. Because it's not just the school wanting you, but it's also you wanting the school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's about both. So of course, like any other student, I did go through the entire process of going to the QS rankings and Times rankings and seeing what schools are there. That's the first step anybody is going to begin from. So I'm going to say the
Yeah.
step one was to first see what are the schools that are even renowned. what are the schools that people go to. It also involves some LinkedIn searches as to where people are, people you know in your networks, people you don't know, but then your network of networks. So everything in that respect, just researching, not talking to anybody yet. So that was my first step.
Yeah.
Second was definitely, I did come from finance, and it's pretty similar, I guess, in terms of the mindset that engineers also have, which is very, very competitive. You always want to be at the best place, you know.
Yeah.
And I came from financial markets background. So I was a derivatives trader at 21. So you can imagine that I was working with 35 years old kind of people who really pushed me to give my GMAT, go to the best school. They were all alumni from the best school. So it was very, very hard for me to then look at it, you know, from a point of view that leave ranking, let's try to find out the school. So it had to be a balance of ranking for the society that I belong in. And second, it had to be a balance of what I wanted. So I definitely took out the best schools that were commonly there in all the lists. And I was like, okay, fine. These are the schools I want to go to because they're also good in ranking. So I'm going to say it was in entire Europe. Again, Europe because it's the best for MIM. So I won't go into details about Europe as of yet. But then once I had a list of the 10 best schools I wanted to go to, I started looking at their course curriculum and bombarding everybody on LinkedIn with how the course is actually structured, how the course looks like, how is the experience. And even if I'm not talking to people, you know, I literally started going to people's profile and seeing what they're doing after, you know, because it speaks a lot of volumes about where the people end up, because it's not about the college placing you, unlike what we believe in India. It's more about how your cohort motivates you to go somewhere. So you will see some schools, most of the people go to like IB, consulting and stuff like that. There has to be some systemic factor into it, right? If the entire batch is motivated to go to the top companies and the top startups and the top consulting, then it speaks about what the culture of the school might be like. And at the same time, you might find some schools where people are starting their own companies, where people are going and joining climate startups, they are going to join NGOs. So then again, it speaks about some kind of different kind of liberal arts sort of a background of the culture of the school. So I started jotting that down. And I really wanted a couple of things that was not very complicated. I wanted flexibility. I did not want to go to consulting and IB again. So I did not want a school that is focused really on only certain factors. And a couple of other things, which was around the location. I really wanted to be in a big city because that would help me to network better. And I really wanted to go to a school that was in the high ranking, like I said. So it was a combination of all. So when I did do that, you will not believe the best school that's believed to be the top 1, 2, 3 is supposed to be AGC, ESSEC and ESCP. I never applied to AGC. And that is why I speak so much about where you fit in, because I knew that that's not the kind of cohort I want to fit into, because I'm not that capable enough to take my choices once I'm put in a situation where people might be thinking in a certain way. So I really wanted that flexibility. I really wanted to be in a school where I felt I belong. So that's why I took up the top 2 schools, like I said, in the top 3 list, and then some other couple of schools that were really randomly placed in Germany, in Singapore, and mainly in Europe. So I would say that was my process. It's like I have a reason to have every school in my list, which is very personal, and that's how I did it.
Right. That was a complete, like, in-depth answer to how to, like, select universities and how to navigate through that entire path. If I have to boil down this entire answer, it basically comes down to a term, self-awareness. Like, how aware are you about what do you exactly want? And, then deciding or making those Excel sheets and then going ahead. So basically the question that I had is, like, when did you start consciously towards that direction? If you there's something called as reverse engineering, that you basically decide a destination, or like this is your goal that you want to achieve, and then you backtrack things, if I have to be here in the next 2 years, so here in the next 1 year, so 6 months, 3 months, you come back. So like you mentioned, the part 1 was just researching about schools, and then the part 2 was networking with people. So in which year of your bachelor's did this entire process begin?
Definitely did not begin in bachelor's. I really moved out of bachelor's into my job, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to become the CFO of some company, you know. I was a total finance geek. So definitely, I don't think it comes to you at some point during studies or it comes to you at some point during your job. I really feel it just comes to you whenever. It can come to me now, maybe. It can come to
Right.
you whenever, literally. So I think my moment of realization, it is something that not a lot of people know, which I'm going to just share, is that once I quit my finance job, and when I said I tried a couple of things, one of the things was actually baking. So I grew up baking a lot and cooking a lot. So I thought, what if that's my calling? And I was always fascinated by restaurants and bakeries. So one condition that I was given by my father was that I will, totally support you, because the whole family was like haywire. Like, you know, they were like, what the hell? Like, she wants to bake now. So my dad was like, I will be the one who will take care of everybody. All you need to do is go to a kitchen and work there for 6 months. That's it. So he helped me get into this restaurant's kitchen, and that was a huge restaurant where I started working. And on the day 3, I realized that this is not for me, and I was like, oh my God, I have no guts to go back home. And all the drama that I did, oh my God, about my calling and all of this is going to go for vain, because I did not like it on the day 3. So if I couldn't survive for 6 months, how was I going to have a career in this? So I think
Right.
this whole process of then experimenting with, then I joined something else, then I joined some social media agency, and I kept doing a lot of things. And when you say, you know, backtrack, there is this awesome thing I believe in, which is that experiences teach you the most. And when you eliminate, that's what I believe was my moment of realization. So I'm still not going to say I'm totally aware, and that awareness came to me at some point. It's actually very logical again. I just kept eliminating options. As a person, I'm only good at certain things, and if I boil it down to soft skills, it's going to be my communication skill, it's going to be my analytical ability, it's going to be that I'm decently good at studies, and not even exceptionally good, but I'm decently good at studies, which helps me be more focused, more time manager. A lot of values come through, you know, being good at studies. So those are basic things I knew about myself from my undergrad. But then eliminating so many career options really in the beginning of the career was how I got through and got to the point of self-awareness, not through any kind of spiritual journey or anything that just struck me. I'm being very, very honest.
Yeah, right. So like, you mentioned in this answer also, and in the previous 2-3 answers also, that, you have been doing a couple of internships and all of that. So, and like you mentioned, like you eliminated multiple career options as well. So that obviously requires you to explore multiple domains, right? Like to maybe pursue, like go out of the way and pursue some curricular activities, or to take up some internship, or like, being active in like the college clubs and all. So what motivated you to like, just stay motivated all the time? Because this requires a lot of effort, like, just going out and doing something out of the way, especially if you consider as in the engineering background as well, like, your college academics does get hectic a lot of times, but then you find your way to go out. Then how did you stay motivated through this entire phase?
Very interesting question. So first of all, I will come back to the last question, what you mentioned, which was about reverse engineering. So whether it was a long-term internship, whether it was a short-term internship, whether it was a club ka position, whether it was, let's say, volunteering, whatever it was, I always thought of things with this reverse engineering mindset, which all boiled down to, I want to have a business of my own in the future. Now, if you ask me, when is it? I had no answer back then, because I had no startup then. I had no idea how I would do things. I knew I wanted to. So every time that I would go to the kitchen also, like I mentioned in the last example, it was to see how the restaurant works. And this is all through reflection. I did not know that, but that time probably that was what was motivating me. So whenever I would do the digital marketing internship, I think the intention was to learn marketing, just because it will eventually help me to do things when I have my own business. And at the same time, whenever it came to clubs, it's going to give me some leadership position. Whenever it came to something else, it's going to help me interact with more people. So, all the intention was really self-driven towards this end goal, which I was probably re-engineering somehow. So I think that is what inherently kept me motivated. Other than that, of course, some of the intrinsic things that keep anybody motivated is when you get some results out of your
Yeah.
endeavors. So I think something I was also doing very consciously is that I was building upon the skills I already had. So that also keeps you motivated, because rather than trying, like, it can sound like I tried 100 things, but like I mentioned in the last answer, is that whatever I was trying was based on my understanding of my skills. So I really thought I could do it. So when you do that, you're naturally motivated because you want to get better and you knew you could. So I think that was also keeping me, on my toes to be better because I knew I could.
Right. That, like, this entire part, like the 4 or 5 questions that we talked about, was really, really insightful for anyone who is pursuing their bachelor's in their college and who is planning to pursue masters. Everything that you mentioned, like, from, like, starting from the analytical approach to, arranging the universities and all, to pursuing extracurriculars, internships, etc. Everything was insightful. Now, actually, I would love to shift to the second part of the podcast, which is about your experience of studying at ESSEC. So, most of the MIM aspirants, in their list, they have these schools like HEC, ESSEC, and all of them. So they really want to know about what is it like studying at ESSEC, and how is the, the crowd at ESSEC and the opportunities that you got. So if you could elaborate on the entire your basically your experience at ESSEC, like your the crowd in ESSEC, the opportunities that you got, as well as the curriculum at ESSEC, like which you mentioned was very aligning with your goals. So yeah, if you could elaborate on that as well.
Definitely. So, first of all, I am really, really glad about this whole process, because all of this did come to life at ESSEC. So, whatever we talked about in the first part, I think all of it started making sense, which is what made ESSEC such an important part of my life. So, yeah, starting with the questions that you asked me, the first part is crowd. So, to be honest, I'm going to be very, very blatantly honest, because it's important to know that you're going abroad to not just find a job, not just study and get a degree, but also meet new people, make new networks, broaden your horizon, be more confident, so many other things. So I think crowd definitely plays an important role. So especially at ESSEC, you can imagine it's based in France. So it's going to have a lot of people who are French in terms of nationality, upbringing, whatever it is. So not only language plays an important role, but also the culture that they come with. So imagine 50% of the crowd is going to be French. Now, coming to, I'll come to the part where how was the experience, but just to give you everybody an idea, 50% is going to be French, let's say. You can assume about 30% is going to be a mix of Indians and Chinese, because again, in population also we are the highest. And the rest of the 20% is going to be from all over the rest of the world. It's going to be people from USA, from Italy, from so many other places all around the world. So now, just to give you an idea about how it looks like. So the best part about ESSEC is that you are not confined with a class. You keep evolving your course. So for anybody who's looking, you can definitely see the course to understand how you don't stick to a cohort for sure. You can complete the course in a year, in a 2-year period, or a 3-year period. So that keeps evolving your crowd also. So once I started specializing in digital, let's say, disruption, I started meeting more and more people in the same space very naturally, because those were the people who were taking those classes. Then I started specializing in entrepreneurship. So again, I started meeting people who were interested in entrepreneurship. And there we were not divided by which country, which batch, which cohort do you come from. Because everybody can take that course, a first-year student to a fourth-year student. So that's what I would say about the crowd, which is very, very mixed. So it could be very exciting for certain people, but to be honest, it can also be daunting to other people, because you don't get to make relationships, like people who take time to build relationships. This can be very hard, because after every trimester, you might not meet the person again, or you might, you never know, basically. So that is about the crowd that really is something that people should keep in mind. For me, my best friends were from USA, from China, from so many other places that I am personally very, very thankful about, because it has really opened up my perspective, and it has really given given me that confidence to really interact with any nationality without having a filter, because it let me experience the fact that mostly everybody is pretty similar in certain ways. So you'll always find similarities in the crowd, but you'll also find differences, which is beautiful, and you should be embracing it. So I think
Yeah.
for me, the journey and the crowd was amazing. And coming to the second question, which is also a result of the first one, because I kept evolving my crowd, the people I was interacting with, the professors, the kind of conversations, everything kept evolving. I think opportunities that I got was also very much dependent on that. So because I was interacting a lot of people, because I started my entrepreneurship track in the beginning, I was always around the crowd that really wanted to do something, wanted to work for startups, wanted to start their own companies. So I had this spirit of working at a really cool unicorn startup. I really wanted to do that. And at that point of time, France only had 14 unicorns. So I had
Okay.
14 companies to apply to, or else I wanted to work for a smaller company. So I really feel like that that was a good challenge for me at that point of time, because it helped me like really push boundaries. So for my first internship, I got an opportunity again because of ESSEC, because it's flexible. I decided to first do a 6-month internship, and then I thought I would do another program that ESSEC allows you to do, which is called apprenticeship. So for my internship, I ended up at a smaller startup and not one of the unicorns, because it was hard to get into and tap into the market. So I then back engineered again, reverse engineered again, and I thought, let me think about how I can get to a unicorn in the next go. So for this, I decided to work as a CEO right hand for a startup. And I thought at that point of time that that will really help me to get into a unicorn later, because, you know, I'll have an experience of all the domains of a startup, and then I can decide which function I should apply for at a unicorn. So to my benefit, it actually panned out the exact same way. So the first opportunity that I had was as a CEO right hand at a small startup in France. And the second one was with a unicorn finally in the domain that I wanted. So I think the whole journey of letting you explore, trying to let you start internships at any point you want, whenever you feel you're ready, equipped with the skills, equipped with the connections, whatever it is, I could do that, which helped me to get there in terms of the opportunities that I'm talking about. And yeah, other than that, I will mix a little bit of opportunity and the next curriculum question that you asked me. So in terms of curriculum also, you can really make it as professionally enriching as you want, or you can make it as academically enriching as you want. I wanted to balance it out. So other than the internships that I was doing, most of my time at ESSEC was dedicated to specializing in things I really wanted to. So I was not taking a lot of academic courses, but I was taking a lot of chairs. So if you want, you can read up about chairs at ESSEC. I can also give you the link for it. So if you see, it's basically this opportunity to study 6 subjects in a certain area, but at the same time be guided by a company that's expert in that area. So for me, I did 3 chairs at ESSEC, and I'm pretty sure you will never find a single person who has done so many chairs at ESSEC, because it's too much. It's too much. It's not recommended, but I really loved the experience of working at chairs and studying at chairs. So I did a couple of specializations, but my favorite, what I would like to focus on, was the circular economy chair, which was the last chair I was part of. So what would happen ideally is that you study about circular economy. You study 6 subjects with a cohort of 25 people who really want to, who have also gotten selected for this cohort. And then, you know, they take you to different companies, they take you to different countries. They take you to, like, they took us to Amsterdam, for example, they took us to Netherlands to actually work on a project with consultants for L'Oreal. So you can imagine, like, it's a really good academic experience backed by a company. So
that's great, yeah,
that was also a part of my opportunity and curriculum that I would say was the best part for me at ESSEC.
Right. So that again was a complete in-depth answer. I mean, you literally answered everything that I asked. And you know, that intersection between multiple domains like opportunities and extracurriculars, because the school offers such a lot of flexibility, is, I think, a really great thing. So, like, you know, I would love to ask you about your personal experience now, like personal experience of France as a country. And like you mentioned, like, you know, while finding internships or something, like, you know, you had to face, I don't know, some barriers, some sort of thing. So a lot of people, when they apply to Europe, they think that, you know, language barrier is the main thing of people not applying to Europe. Like that's the main reason. So how did you feel? Like is France really welcoming, and how is France as a place, as a country actually, and how is the entire experience of being in France, living in France, and the French people and everything about that?
Yeah, so about experience of being in France, looking for jobs, I will try to divide this answer again into parts for better clarity. So so there are two aspects of moving abroad in general, right? This is again something you also need to think about in the beginning of the process, because there is one aspect which I also mentioned, that it's not just about your job, but it still is one aspect of the entire journey. So yes, dividing this answer into the first part, which is professional journey, and then coming to more of the cultural part, which is your life abroad. I will try to answer one by one. So the first part, which is the professional part, is again really dependent on what you want to do. Now let's say somebody like me who wanted to bake in the past. Just think about it this way: if you work at a bakery and on a daily level you deal with people who speak primarily, who are not bilinguals, they speak only French, and you deal with them. So of course, language is going to matter. Like it's very logical. Everything is very, very logical. At the same time, if you are somebody like what I did later was work at an international startup, and you want to actually have marketing projects that are more global in nature, then of course these French people can't talk to each other. So they will have to interact with people from all over the globe. So they will not be restricted to the language, because then of course the skills matter. Because if you want to work for L'Oreal, for example, in global marketing, so they will not be speaking in French. Of course, only for your job is what I'm talking about, for your role. So when they're hiring, they're not going to look at language as a problem when it comes to your deliverable. But of course, if you do sort of have an hindrance in terms of you incorporating into the culture of the company, and if a company is very stringent about that, then it's a different story. But all the global companies, when it comes to L'Oreal, Danone, Louis Vuitton, all these companies, for their global offices, they don't discriminate between people because of this very fact that they want international people to deal with international clients, international teams. So that's my take on it. That's what at least I told myself. Now coming to how it panned out for me. So I was looking for internships, and my first internship, like I said, was at a startup. So again, contrary to normal belief, which is that, at startups, it's even more difficult because they don't have global operations. You will never get a job there because everybody will be speaking in French, was a belief that I was also told. So of course, by default, I thought it's not possible to work at a startup, but I really wanted to. But again, if you go to think about it, these startups are also thinking global. And through my experience of applying and talking to founders, I realized that if anything, they are more open to hiring people who have a global mindset and can speak the language English very fluently, because it's going to help them do better business abroad. And their skill set is more important and not the language that they speak. So to be honest, in my opinion, that is the kind of motive I had. I wanted to join such missions who wanted to be global, because if in the first place they did not want to be global, then I don't want to go there either. So it easily gets eliminated. So every time that I was talking to the founder, I was applying, I was looking for this very cultural aspect. And if it fit, then I would apply. And then I think it was always about my skills and never about the language. And I think I can speak for most people in the batch, especially for Indians in the batch, because everybody would logically do that. If they did not do it in the start, they would eventually get to know and then do it. So I think that's definitely something to know for everybody who's looking at France. Second thing is the cultural aspect. Now, this is the tricky one, because for the first one, of course, you had to have a skill set and you had to have an eye to eliminate companies that don't find your fit your cultural preferences. Now, for the culture, you can't change the entire country. But how I look at it is that it is not just a master's degree. What you get as a bonus when you study in France is that you get to learn a new language. MIM is pretty long, right? 3 years ke course mein, it's not very difficult to pick up the language. For me, I really believe I could have done better. I can make excuses about COVID and stuff like that, but honestly, I could have done better in terms of cultural respect to learn the language. Would I still be working in French? No. So
No. Yeah.
professionally, learning French is totally a separate topic. But culturally, I think what it would have done is that I would have understood more jokes, more cultural references. I would have been able to meet more parents of my friends. I would have been more able to go to the rural parts of France and
Yeah.
be comfortable. A lot of cultural things I think I could have done better, only if I would have given more efforts towards learning the language. So that is my first take on this. But still, of course, I was very, very, very lucky with the French friends that I had. So all of them also, again, people who are not restricted to the country, who have traveled abroad, who have friends from abroad, were very open to again integrate with us. So in my close set of 8 people, there are 2 people who are French, and in my extended circle there are a lot of people who are French, and I've never felt any different from them. If anything, I have grown to realize how similar they are to Indians. So to be honest, they're like family, and their values are also very much like family, at least from the experience that I have had. So I would say that's my take on my experience of French people.
Right, right. That's again a very, very beautiful answer. Like, the way you divided it between like the professional aspect to that and the cultural aspect to that, again, was really insightful. Like, I wanted to ask this question in the part A only, but I'll ask it right now. While applying, or like, obviously when you're applying to MIM, Europe obviously stands away better, like, than the US. But when people are usually applying for courses such as MS and all, there's usually a distinction between should they apply to the US or should they apply to the Europe. So like, what's your take on this? Like, because see, first of all, I'll tell this a few things. Like, when me and like my friends have a chat, like, कि हमको US में ही जाना है because Europe में we have some visa, some like a visa is not that supportive enough or something like that. Second thing is probably Europe is more costlier. Like, when people think of Europe, they first of all think London. I don't know why, and they say that like it's a really costly city. Europe is costly in general, so we'll just apply to US. And the third most important thing that I feel is like people are more familiar about the scholarships that they get in the US universities, but not quite aware about the things that happen in the European institution. So like, could you elaborate on this particular answer? Like, why should people also consider Europe, not just run behind US, and your experience about this entire thing? Like, maybe it could be your own analysis of situations, or through your own extended network. Like, yeah.
So definitely, this is a question I have answered so many times. So I probably have a very rehearsed answer for this. I've also spoken at length on my channel as well, which is that let me but keep it brief by focusing on the major points. Okay, and I'm hopeful that it will cover most of the points, and then I'll add on anything I want. So the first thing you told me was visa, right? It's really strange, and I always get surprised that engineers are specifically the people who think like this, because if anything, Europe has the easiest visa process in the entire set of countries that people are looking at. And I'm not even exaggerating this. Even if you do a 1-year course in Europe, it doesn't matter if you already had a 3-year course in bachelor's or 4-year course in bachelor. It doesn't matter. When you go to Europe and you study for 1 year, you automatically get a visa for 2 years. And it's very, very easy to get the next visa for 4 years and then 10 years. It's really easy. And especially something very surprising, which again, people don't know, is that if you study at one of the top Grande Écoles, which is the top MIM schools in France, you can directly apply for citizenship, by the way. So for people who want to look for moving abroad, you can actually do it right 2 years after you graduate. So when I start my job now, let's say after graduating, after 2 years, which is the default visa that I get, I directly apply for a passport. That's even possible. So in terms of immigration, I'm not saying that is an option to be exercised, but I'm just trying to paint a picture how open they are to welcoming immigrants. And to be honest, even in terms of very small things. Now, this is where I'm digressing from the visa. But something you should know is that they're so open to immigrants that even healthcare as a student for me was covered. And even when I was interning, my insurance was covered. So even if I take a medicine worth of 10 euros or I get tests done of 1,000 euros, it is all borne by the government, which talks at length about how socialistic they are. So visa, all these things. are surprisingly believed to be not easy in Europe, but they're the easiest in Europe. Coming to UK, now they are very, very easy in UK as well. Very, very easy in UK as well. And if anything, out of these countries that we are talking about and the kind of areas we are talking about, US is the hardest. So for US, you have to rely on a lucky draw system. So I know it can feel more relatable when you have your seniors who are studying abroad in US and they tell you
Yeah.
it's fine, it's easy. So you will feel more relatable and you're going to be like, yeah, US is easy. But it doesn't mean it's easy. It's more relatable for you. It's more
Right.
sought after because you know the details in prior. But at the same time, when you talk to people in France, you will realize the visas are absolutely friendly, like in terms of anything, like even in terms of documentation. There is no lucky draw, for example. In US, you have to go through a lucky draw, which means it's chance basis. So again, the
Right.
analytical me is going to be like, you only have X amount of percentage chance to get into
Yeah.
the visa and what not. And if you do get fired, for instance, in US, which is so relevant in today's time. I know you guys are very young to talk about this and think about this, but it is relevant that it's a pathetic time in general. So if you do get fired, you only have 3 months on OPT to find a new job. At the same time, in France, the moment you get fired, the government starts paying you, and that to 75% of your salary, because it's very socialistic. So for as long as you don't find a job, and it's not even like they pay you for 3 months or something, they pay you for as long as you don't find a job. So yeah, I mean, that's about visa and, to be honest, moving and the life that can be after. So that's a little bit about it. If you want me to get into details, I can go on, but I'll keep it short. The second one, what you asked was about costing and the fees and
the tuition fee.
Europe being costlier in general and all of that. So tuition fees, again, guys, definitely much more expensive in US, like much more. To an extent that it's almost double. And if nothing, it is at least going to be like 40% more or something like that. So it's going to be like 150% or 200% off the fees in Europe. So if you imagine, in no way is it cheaper, because tuition fee is the most important chunk of the expense that you have, because whenever you're a student, either in Europe or in US, you either choose to do part-time jobs or not. It's all the same. Even the rates that you would get for part-time jobs is going to be very similar. Even in terms of expenses, in both US as well as Europe, it depends on which city are you in. So Europe as a continent and US as a country cannot be expensive or cheap. It is actually the city that you're in. It is the healthcare that you might have to bear. It is the travel cost. It is the rent. It is so many other things. That's all dependent on the city that you're in, So if you look at it objectively again, you will see that it's true that Paris is believed to be the most expensive city in the world. So yes, I can imagine how people think it's the most expensive, but I mean, that's the whole point, that you don't have to stay in the downtown part of Paris. So then you adjust. But the way you can travel, the kind of public transport, everything else is so cheap and so well developed in Europe compared to US, by the way, where everybody has cars to commute. You can imagine that the life can be cheaper if you wanted to. So you can live in as little as 300 euros to as much as 1500 euros. And over and above everything, France offers, the government again pays you every month for your rent support as well as a student. So every month they were paying me 300 euros. So whatever Paris might be more expensive than XYZ city in US, government is backing it up by paying me 300 bucks. So let's say my rent was 600, government was paying me 300 irrespective. So I was only bearing 300. So, that is something people don't know about. So I would say that try to again look at it very objectively before deciding costs, because what you read on internet as Paris being the most expensive city, it doesn't pan out if you really do calculations. So I would recommend that go to LinkedIn, talk to people who are living in Paris, who are living in New York, living in whichever city you want to move to, and then take this call. So that's going to be about costing. And the third thing that you asked was again scholarships, fees and stuff like that. So About scholarships, again, you're right. Actually, it's again about relevance, right? It's about relatability. You know people from your batches, above batches, from your seniors who have been there, so you are more aware of the scholarships. But I am an education consultant, so I can tell you with guarantee that if not more, there are equal opportunities in Europe. And they also have a wonderful system that you can later take advantage of, which is working for the whole year, taking gap years, doing apprenticeship in ESSEC, for example. Because for me, for instance, this is offered by no other school in nowhere else in the world, which is that the company, the unicorn that I talked about in previous answers, they paid my tuition fees completely.
Oh boy.
So
Okay.
I mean, there are a lot of schemes that you'll have to dig up into because it might not be scholarship, but it is something else. So again, I'm really going to recommend to look at all these factors because something you're not aware of does not mean it does not exist. So that's what my take is, that it's pretty much equal in both US and Europe.
Right. So again, this was a very insightful answer because because the listeners of this podcast will also be from the engineering background. I myself am from an engineering background. So I know what the engineering mindset typically looks like. Everyone wants to go to the US except for those who want to really pursue mechanical engineering or a combination of like mechanical and management, that is a production engineering or something like that. Only those set of people look forward to pursuing their higher education in Germany. Rest all the people computer science and all, everybody wants to go to the US. But obviously, again, there are some factors like in the US, you have the Silicon Valley and then the entire tech culture in the US. But yeah, this answer was really insightful with for the engineers' perspective also, because now that the people that are watching this podcast will get an idea about things are occasion Europe as well. Like US is not the only option that they want to pursue their masters into.
Definitely.
Also, like I mentioned again, like people are from the engineering background. So I'm pretty sure people in your batch as well, there must be some of them who did their engineering first and then got into MIM. So could you tell us about their journey or the learnings that you've had from their journey? Because, again, it's a very unusual thing to do, to shift from engineering to MIM. Like not a lot of people do that. So if you could tell us about your experience of networking with such people.
Definitely. So I'm glad you brought this up because it is again very contrary to what actually the reality is, because there are a lot of engineers. If anything, this course, Masters in Management in general, can help engineers more than it can help people like me from commerce background. Because for you, it's the greatest opportunity at such a young age to have some kind of technical knowledge of any kind, and then also have leadership and management skills that you can have at this point in your career without any experience. Take all the experience during the course and then be career ready for either technical or management. So overall, I feel like it's the best for engineers, and that's exactly what I say to my clients as well, because you're very, very well placed. So first of all, don't think that it's probably not the best choice. Definitely not. Secondly, if it comes to only if I talk about the Indian cohort at ESSEC for MIM or any other B school, we have people from IIT, from NIT. NIT to bahut, IIT bhi kafi, even BITS, even Manipal, like all the common schools that you keep listening about. 50% plus of the Indian batch at ESSEC is engineers. So definitely engineers are choosing it. And more so, like since we are so many already, imagine yaar, India mein itne log, if they are doing engineering, then they're clearly going to also represent 50% of the class. And I'm not surprised at all. So to be honest, I feel like when I was a student, not anymore, but I used to envy engineers because they have a very sound, this capacity that comes from within to be, because of, I really feel it's because of the JEE preparation that you guys have gone through, that it's, you can just get work done. And it's the funniest thing that happened to me if I'm talking about an engineer's journey. I was struggling with economics, and the engineer was also struggling with economics. Now, for both of us, it's new. We are solving, and then I'm like, oh my God, how did the answer become 30? He's like, is the answer 30? Because I can tell you how to get there if you tell me the answer. And I was like, no, but you don't know the process. He's like, no, I can just tell you the answer. Like, I'll get there. Just tell me the answer. And I was like, what are you saying? And he was like, no, we do that at engineering. if you tell me any answer, I'll find out how to get there. And I see these quirky things that comes from engineers that really inspired me, to be honest, because you guys have this mindset towards shortcuts, you have it towards analytical thinking
Analytical,
also,
yeah.
to logical approaches to things that can really help in business problems, because you guys are very quick at solving things, I feel like. And you guys also are very used to doing it with a crunch of time on you, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
at projects, these are all my observations. Because why am I saying all these things is because just to give you perspective that I was never exposed to engineers before this. And now working with engineers on projects on different areas, I know very well how well placed they are to do this course. So if you're anybody who wants to transition or even explore management, this is definitely a very good course for you. And even during doing this course, it's not like you're going to leave your engineering life behind. So you can always
Yeah.
have a management degree and still be in the same space. So if you're
Yeah.
really passionate about computer science, for example, and you come to a management school, it's only going to give you more opportunities at management positions. It's not going to
Yeah.
it's not going to take your Python skills away. So don't
Exactly.
worry. And you can also really make it better, because now you will not just have projects that are fictional. You will actually work on real projects. So
Real
if
life
you're at a
problems,
chair
yeah.
like me, L'Oreal will come and give you a project. So now you will apply your Python and your technical skills, whatever it is, onto a real business problem, which will really make you more equipped for the future. So I'm going to say that's what my take is. And overall, for all the engineers that I see, just to comment on that, their experience has been pretty similar. They started out with knowing nothing about finance, about marketing, about anything if they did not have experience, but they came out as masters in management graduates and nothing else. If anything, with more skills, but they were absolutely fine in the course. They're absolutely doing fine now. Most of them are doing wonders in their careers. So don't worry. That's what I would say. That's their experience.
Right, yeah, because there are some people around me as well, those who are interested into not the hardcore management stuff, or like the hardcore non-tech stuff is what we call like finance, marketing and all. We refer to it as a non-tech stuff. But there are some people that I know, those who are have an interest between the intersection point between management and tech. So if there's a Venn diagram, the intersection point between both of these domains is what really excites them. So I can see people when I browse LinkedIn as well today, I can see people who are working as growth marketers, who are working as product managers. These are, I think, new upcoming fields which are an intersection between tech and management. So it's neither like hardcore finance or hardcore engineering, like you have to sit behind the computers and code all day long or something like that. It's not like that anymore. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for engineers to shift as well. Yeah,
Definitely.
Yeah. So now we move to the last part of the podcast. So which is about the things that you're currently into. Like you mentioned about your YouTube channel a couple of times. You mentioned about the consulting that you do. So if you could elaborate about that entire thing, like first of all, YouTube, obviously, because I've seen your videos and they are extremely insightful for the people those are planning to either move abroad for studies, particularly in France, and then again focusing on the MIM domain. So if you could talk about how and why did you start your YouTube channel, like what motivated you to start and put your work out there. And secondly, how did it help you get opportunities on the internet or however, wherever possible?
So definitely, when I come to YouTube as a concept, I think it was again something that happened very, very randomly, but I can share the story about how it actually probably the roots of it. So when I did start MIM research, like I told you, I did my best in terms of Excel, in terms of whatever I could, but information online was not there. So when I say I spoke to people on LinkedIn, that was my basis of information. And I'm not joking. There was this one guy who was like, oh, please don't come to France because I feel very, very lonely. Now, this was his own experience, but he told me this and it really affected me because I was like, what if I'm lonely? And there was no information out there for me to validate things. And then I spoke to another person who was like, this is the best decision of my life. You will be absolutely fine and you'll kill it and all of this. And I was like, okay. And, I took the second person's word and I actually did move abroad and I literally thanked him 1 year later going back, and he was like, you probably don't even remember me because 100 people bombard you, but then I really need to thank you for your words because it really helped me take that extra push. So I felt like if one person could do that for me, I think inherently I wanted to do it for more people. So while I
Right.
could sit behind LinkedIn and help people by answering their question, at some point I was not able to answer as much as I wanted to.
Right.
So, sometimes I would take calls with people. Sometimes I would make voice recordings for them to answer. I'm pretty sure they got creeped out when they just messaged me something and I was like, voice note. But I had so much to explain, so much to share, so much to for people to know and base their decisions on. So I was like, I need to do it somehow. So that was one of the routes of starting it. And then at the same time, I did not know it's going to be YouTube yet, right? So I thought the best way is to actually start a website which could do that. So that was my first education consulting thing, where I just started helping students to actually apply and tell them what are the good parts about Europe if they were confused. And it was not in any way focused on getting people to come to Europe. It was more about giving them a clear picture. That's how it started. And I kept doing it. We had a lot of clients back then. And that's when I decided that, okay, fine, I can help my clients, but I still need to help more people. That's how YouTube actually was a result of, I think, the same thought process, which was like, ki chalo thoda YouTube pe bhi bol dete hain, taki a lot more people can reach out to you, even if they're not applying. So for the people who are applying, you're helping them. But how could you do it for people who are not, who are decision making right now? So that's why you'll see all my videos are also focused on usually the pre-decision, more about the life there, so that, those are the things that people want to see. So I started with a vlog series on purpose to show people ki how does it look, yaar? Like, it's fun, it's also studious, it's also about going to office, so that people can imagine it and picture it, because there was not enough content about France to picture it. So that was the reason why I started. Now, coming to what kind of opportunities it gave me, to be honest, it was my start something new. I really wanted to start something of my own. So it was my start something new. It was something that really let me speak with people in so much confidence. I'm pretty sure you go through the same, because you also make these podcasts. The first time that you make the podcast is so awkward. Like, I still have my old videos there. It sucks. Like, I just don't have the body language. I don't have the mic. I don't have anything. So it sucks, but I've kept it there just to also see my growth through the whole channel process. So I think it really made me more confident, more concrete when it comes to what I speak, because now I have to do it in 7 minutes, So now I'm like, okay, like, really need to confine my, the stuff that I want to say. So those are the things that it helped me with. And also in job applications for people who want to know professionally, also it really helps you, because it was always viewed as, oh my God, you had a side hustle. That's so cool. And, you also work on it. You also manage time better. That means you also communicate better, whatever it is. So it added to a lot of soft skill benefits for my job as well. And other than that, my most recent, because I restructured my entire company to MIM Wizard now. And for that, it really brings me now a lot of money as well. So it gets me clients, it gets me people at the ground level who I help to now move to France. So some of my students now are even graduating. So it's very nice. I think YouTube was the real means for me, and that's what it did to me. So overall, just helped me personally as well as professionally.
That's absolutely great. I mean, I can totally resonate with the point that you mentioned, the first time you are on camera. I think first time when everyone is on camera, first of all, you need to do that at least once in your life and then make that video public to and then keep making videos until the point you are comfortable with the camera, and then check how far have you actually come. Because even I did that 1 year ago, and when I look at that, the way I'm shooting this podcast right now, first of all, I cringe on the old content that I shot, but at the same time, I'm proud of myself. Somewhere down the line, I'm pretty sure you felt that too, because you can see how far have you actually come in that entire process. And when I'm shooting this podcast with you, because we have interviewed a lot of people before as well, I can see that comfort in front of the camera, or that enthusiasm while you are speaking, as well as I can also see that linearity of laying down points one after the other. And then when I was asking you 3-4 questions, for example, what's your experience of studying at ESSEC, then you told it in 3-4 points, and keeping all of those points in mind, I think it also makes you a great listener, because I've been observing this through the entire podcast. Every question that I've answered, I'm pretty sure that I threw in 3-4 questions at the same time, but you literally picked up each question, answered it. Okay, so your next question was this. Okay, yeah, the next question. So yeah, I mean, it was a phenomenal experience recording a podcast with you like this also, because you being a creator and like, I also enjoy doing this. So yeah, it was a great experience.
To be honest, likewise, you have a similar enthusiasm in yourself also. I have told you this even otherwise, because I really think that it is a journey to get there. And like you said, it doesn't have to be just as a concluding fact for anybody who's starting anything new. It's really important to know YouTube video is just one of those things, right? Koi bhi cheez, whenever you start, you just need to be out there and do it. And how I got this spirit was also through this other YouTube video I watched, where the person was like, just upload 50 videos, you will somehow be better. And I was like, what does that even mean? And I just kept following it, and I'm still not at 50 videos yet, but I see what he meant, because when I do get to 50, I'm pretty sure I'm going to be better. Now, how did it happen? I don't know. It's just probably you wanting to be a little better every day. So I think it goes with anything, for your MIM, for your journey, for your engineering school, for your courses, for anything. I think that's very, very key, and I see that in you, and I'm pretty sure that everybody has it. It's just that just start. Whatever you're doing, just start.
Yep. That was a really, really insightful podcast. I really enjoyed shooting this episode with you. If there's one final advice, not actually one, but if you could give multiple advices to people, those who are listening to this podcast, like for context, these are 18 to 24 age group people who are primarily pursuing their bachelor's in their college and mostly into their engineering studies. So as a student or as a overall development as a person, if you could give one advice or multiple.
Definitely. So first of all, I think without you asking, I just gave one advice, which is to start anything you want. But if I were to answer this question, honestly, again, in no way am I promoting my channel, but I made a video yesterday, so I'm just going to use the 5 points that I mentioned there, which is that in your engineering school, for the age group that you're mentioning, from 18 to 24, whatever it is, if you're even early career graduates, before your MIM or any kind of master's degree, try to do these 5 things. The first one is going to be a side hustle of any kind. It can be literally anything. The second one is develop a professional hard skill. Now, if it means video recording, if it means video editing, if it means Adobe, if it means Photoshop, if it means not something related to content, but actually like digital marketing, whatever it is, just develop one hard skill. The third one is going to be a soft skill, which can be playing some instrument. It can be really something you do as a hobby. The fourth one is going to be go and do one external internship of any kind again. It doesn't matter where, how, for how long. And the fifth one is going to be that just be patient and kind to yourself, because agar tum itna kar rahe ho, so you're doing enough. And really, engineering is a long process. I know it starts very, very early, much before the engineering school. So be very proud of yourself, first of all. Very, very proud of yourself. And yeah, the fact that you're listening to the podcast, the fact that you're anybody who has made it till this point of podcast, that just means you want to do more. So just trust in the process, and you're going to be absolutely fine.
Thank you so much for this podcast. It was an amazing experience. Thank you so much once again. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you.